The smell of burnt coffee and lies filled our kitchen that Tuesday night. I should have known something was wrong when Vanessa actually cooked dinner. Real food, not her usual microwaved health bar and guilt trip combo. "How was your day, honey?" she asked, stirring pasta sauce with the enthusiasm of someone defusing a bomb. I loosened my tie and watched her performance. After 15 years of marriage, you learn to read the signs. The overly bright smile, the way she kept glancing at her phone, the fact she'd hidden it under a dish towel like some kind of domestic spy. "Same old consulting work," I said, grabbing a beer from the fridge. "Fixed another company's network security. Amazing how many people think password 123 is bulletproof. Before we dive deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible Reddit stories." Vanessa laughed, that fake tinkle she reserved for my jokes when she wasn't really listening. Her phone buzzed under the towel. She practically lunged for it. "Sorry, just work stuff," she said, typing furiously. "This audit is ending me." Right. The mysterious audit she'd been mentioning for weeks but never explained. As a financial manager at Hartwell & Associates, Vanessa handled mid-level corporate accounts. Nothing that required midnight phone calls and secret text sessions. "Which client?" I asked casually. Her fingers froze over the screen. "What?" "The audit. Which client is keeping you so busy?" "Oh, the Morrison Group, big manufacturing account." She set the phone face down and returned to her sauce stirring with renewed vigor. I nodded and filed that away. The Morrison Group had been our neighbor's company before they went bankrupt last year. Either Vanessa was handling ghost audits, or she was lying through her perfectly veneered teeth. After dinner, she disappeared upstairs for what she called work calls, but sounded more like whispered conversations with someone named Greg. I'd heard that name floating around her office talk lately, Greg Linton, her boss. The guy with the expensive car and gym membership who apparently thought business casual meant showing off his biceps through tight button-downs. I was loading the dishwasher when Mrs. Finch knocked on our back door. Our 70-something neighbor had a talent for showing up at exactly the right moment with exactly the wrong information. "Joel, dear, I think the mailman mixed up our deliveries again," she said, holding an envelope. "This came to my box, but it's addressed to Vanessa." The return address made my stomach drop. Serenity Spa Resort. The kind of place that charged more for a weekend than most people made in a month? "Thanks, Mrs. Finch. I'll make sure she gets it." "Such a lovely place," she continued, because Mrs. Finch never met a conversation she couldn't extend. "My sister went there for her anniversary. Cost her husband nearly $3,000 for 2 nights. But I suppose Vanessa deserves a treat after working so hard on that big project." "Big project?" "Oh yes, she mentioned it when I saw her at the grocery store. Something about a major financial opportunity that would set you both up for life. Lucky girl, having such exciting work." After Mrs. Finch left, I stared at the spa brochure that had fallen out of the envelope. Couples packages, romantic getaways, a handwritten note on resort stationery. "Can't wait to see you there. G." I found Vanessa in our bedroom, still whispering into her phone. She ended the call the moment she saw me. "Who was that?" I asked. "Kara. Girl talk." She held up her manicured nails like evidence. "We're planning a spa day." "Funny you mention that." I handed her the envelope. "This came to Mrs. Finch's box by mistake." Vanessa's face went through several interesting color changes as she processed the brochure and note. Recovery mode kicked in fast. "Oh, that. It's for the Morrison Group executives. I'm planning their corporate retreat." "With Greg?" Another pause. Longer this time. "He's my supervisor, Joel. Of course he's involved in client entertainment." "Right. A client entertainment." I sat on the edge of our bed, studying her face. "Vanessa, is there something you want to tell me?" "Like what?" "Like why you've been acting strange for weeks. The phone calls, the late nights, the mysterious audit that doesn't seem to involve any actual paperwork." She stood up, crossing her arms. "I can't believe you're interrogating me like this. I'm working my ass off to advance my career, and you're acting like some jealous husband from a bad movie." "I'm not jealous. I'm confused. We've been together 15 years, and suddenly you're secretive about everything. Maybe because every time I try to share work stuff, you make jokes or change the subject. You think because you fix computers, you understand finance?" That stung, mainly because there was some truth to it. I had made jokes about her work, mostly because she never seemed to take it seriously herself. But this felt different. This felt like deflection. "You're right," I said. "I don't understand finance. But I understand marriage. And this doesn't feel like marriage anymore." Vanessa's expression softened slightly. She sat next to me, taking my hand. Joel, I'm sorry. This project is just really stressful. Big money, big responsibility. I can't mess it up. What kind of money? The kind that could pay off our mortgage and then some. The kind that could set us up for early retirement. And Greg's involved in this? He's my boss, Joel. He's involved in everything I do at work. I wanted to believe her. The alternative, that my wife was planning something behind my back with her muscle-bound supervisor, was too cliché to be real. But the evidence was piling up like snow in a Maine winter, heavy, cold, and impossible to ignore. That night, after Vanessa fell asleep, I did something I'd never done before. I went through her things. Her purse yielded nothing interesting except breath mints and a gym membership card for a place across town, not the community center where she claimed to work out. Her laptop was password protected, but I knew her well enough to guess. Vanessa, 123. Some habits die hard. Her browser history told a story I didn't want to read. Searches for community property laws Maine, hiding assets during divorce, and safe deposit box privacy rights. Mixed in were real estate listings for luxury condos in Florida and airplane tickets to the Cayman Islands. But the real treasure was in her email drafts folder. Messages she'd written but never sent, probably because even she knew how damning they sounded. G. Talked to the lawyer today. He says if we're careful about timing, I can claim half of Joel's inheritance before filing. The key is making sure he doesn't suspect until it's too late. G found the perfect place in Boca. 2 bedrooms, ocean view, and no extradition treaties for civil matters. LOL. Just kidding about that last part. Or am I? G, he's getting suspicious about the phone calls. Maybe we should cool it until after the safe deposit box thing is settled. Can't risk him hiding the money before I can get to it. I sat in our dark kitchen, staring at the laptop screen and feeling like an idiot. My inheritance, the $500,000 my father had left me after his heart attack 2 years ago, was sitting in a joint account, earning pathetic interest while I figured out what to do with it. I'd wanted to invest it, maybe start my own consulting business. Vanessa had pushed for keeping it liquid, just in case. Now I knew what case she'd been preparing for. The worst part wasn't the betrayal, it was the stupidity. She thought I was too dumb to figure it out, too trusting to protect myself, too weak to fight back. After 15 years of marriage, she'd decided I was just another problem to solve, another account to liquidate. She was wrong about that. Dead wrong. I closed the laptop and went back to bed, lying next to my wife while my mind raced through possibilities. She wanted to play financial games? Fine. But she'd picked the wrong opponent. Tomorrow, I'd start playing by my own rules. Curtis Martinez had been my gym buddy for 3 years, ever since I'd decided that 40-something meant I needed to take fitness seriously. He was a former cop turned private investigator, which made him the perfect person to grab coffee with when you needed advice about evidence gathering. So, let me get this straight, Curtis said, stirring sugar into his coffee. Your wife is planning to divorce you, steal your inheritance, and run off to Florida with her boss? That's the theory. And you want to what exactly? Beat them to the courthouse? I want to make sure they don't get away with it. Curtis leaned back in his chair, studying me. Joel, you're a good guy, but good guys usually get screwed in situations like this. You sure you want to play dirty? They started playing dirty. I'm just evening the field. All right, but we do this smart and legal. No breaking and entering, no stolen phones, no hacking. Everything admissible and above board. Agreed. First thing, you need a lawyer. Not just any lawyer. Someone who specializes in asset protection and knows how to handle sneaky spouses. Curtis gave me the name of Margaret Dunn, a family law attorney with a reputation for creative solutions. Her office was downtown, in one of those renovated brick buildings that screamed expensive but worth it. Miss M. Dunn was about 50, with silver hair and the kind of sharp eyes that probably made opposing lawyers nervous. She listened to my story without interrupting, taking notes in precise handwriting. Your wife is making several critical mistakes, she said when I finished. First, she's documenting everything in writing. Second, she's involving a co-conspirator who has his own vulnerabilities. Third, she's assuming you're passive. What do you recommend? We let her make the first move. In Maine, if she files for divorce and claims you're hiding assets, she'll have to prove it. But if we can show she's the one hiding assets and planning fraud, the court will not be sympathetic. What about the inheritance? Move it. Today. Open a separate account at a different bank, transfer the money, and document everything. You have every legal right to protect premarital assets, especially if you suspect fraud. Won't that look suspicious? Not if you do it properly. We'll file a preemptive motion claiming you've discovered evidence of planned asset theft. The court will freeze everything until we can sort it out, but at least your money will be safe. I left Ms. Dunn's office feeling better than I had in weeks. For the first time since discovering Vanessa's plan, I felt like I had some control. The bank transfer took less than an hour. $500,000 moved from our joint account to a new individual account at First National. I kept the receipts and made copies of everything. That evening, Vanessa was in full performance mode again. She'd made dinner, opened a bottle of wine, and was being unusually affectionate. "I've been thinking about what you said last night," she began, running her fingers along my arm. "About us not feeling like a married couple anymore." "Oh? Maybe we should plan a vacation. Somewhere romantic. Reconnect, you know?" "That sounds nice. Where were you thinking?" "I don't know. Maybe Florida. I hear the Keys are beautiful this time of year." I almost laughed. She was actually trying to get me to pay for a scouting trip to her future home base. "Florida's nice," I said, "but maybe we should wait until after your big audit is finished. I wouldn't want work to interrupt our romantic getaway." Something flickered across her face. "Right, the audit. How's that going, by the way? You haven't mentioned it lately." "It's complicated. Lots of moving parts." "I'm sure Greg is being supportive." Another flicker. "He's very professional." "I'm sure he is. Must be nice having such a hands-on boss." Vanessa stood up abruptly. "I think I'll take a bath. Long day." After she went upstairs, I checked my phone. Curtis had sent me a text. "Saw your wife's boyfriend at the gym today. Guy's definitely planning something. Overheard him on the phone talking about closing the deal by Friday." Friday was 3 days away. I spent the next 2 days in careful preparation. Ms. Dunn helped me file the protective motion, which would be served to Vanessa on Friday morning, just before whatever she and Greg had planned. I also installed a small digital recorder in my home office, the one room where Vanessa felt safe making her private calls. Thursday night, I hit the jackpot. "Greg, I'm telling you, he doesn't suspect anything," Vanessa's voice came through clearly on the recording. "He's too trusting. Always has been." "What about the bank account? You sure you can access it?" "Joint account, joint access. I've already talked to their lawyer about the community property laws. Once I file the papers tomorrow, I can freeze everything while we sort out the assets. By the time he knows what's happening, the money will be in our control." "And then?" "Then we disappear for a while. Let the lawyers handle the messy stuff while we enjoy our new life in Florida. I can't wait to be done with this place, and done pretending to care about your boring husband." "Joel's not boring. He's just predictable. He'll probably spend months trying to figure out what went wrong, never realizing he was the problem all along." They both laughed. The sound made my blood boil, but I kept listening. "What about Cynthia?" Vanessa asked. "My wife? She'll be fine. She's got her own money, her own life. She probably won't even notice I'm gone until the divorce papers show up." "You sure about that?" "Trust me. Cynthia checked out of our marriage years ago. This is just making it official." The conversation continued for another 10 minutes, covering logistics for their Friday meeting with Vanessa's lawyer and their weekend trip to finalize the arrangements. By the time they hung up, I had everything I needed. Friday morning arrived gray and cold, typical Maine weather for late fall. I was drinking coffee and reading the news when the doorbell rang. "Joel Carter?" The process server was young, probably new to the job. He looked nervous. "That's me." "You've been served." He handed me a thick envelope and practically ran back to his car. I opened it slowly, even though I knew what it contained. Divorce papers, a motion for emergency asset protection, a restraining order requiring me to stay away from all joint accounts and property. Vanessa emerged from the kitchen, trying to look surprised. "What's that, honey?" "Legal papers. Seems someone thinks I'm planning to steal my own money." Her acting was better than I'd expected. The shocked expression, the concerned tone, the way she reached for the papers like she wanted to help. "I don't understand. Who would file something like this?" "Your lawyer, apparently. Robert Phelps, attorney at law. Ring any bells?" Now the acting slipped a little. "Joel, I can explain." "I'm sure you can. But first, I think you should call Greg. Tell him there's been a change of plans." "Greg? Why would I call Greg?" I pulled out my phone and played yesterday's recording. Vanessa's face went white as her own voice filled the room, discussing community property laws and disappearing to Florida. "You recorded me?" "I documented evidence of fraud. Big difference." "You can't use that. It's illegal." "Actually, it's not. Maine is a one-party consent state. As long as one person in the conversation knows about the recording, in this case me, since you were talking about stealing my money in my house, it's perfectly legal." Vanessa sank into a chair, her carefully constructed plan crumbling around her. "Joel, please, let me explain what's really happening." "I know what's really happening. You and Greg decided I was too stupid to protect myself. You figured you'd take half my inheritance, disappear to Florida, and leave me holding the bag. It's not like that. Then what is it like? She was quiet for a long moment, probably calculating her options. Finally, she looked up with something approaching honesty. I'm not happy, Joel. I haven't been happy for years. So you decided to steal from me instead of asking for a divorce? I knew you'd fight it. Try to keep everything. You never gave me the chance to prove otherwise. Would you have just let me go? I thought about it. Would I have? Probably not easily. But I wouldn't have tried to destroy her financially either. We'll never know now, I said, because you chose fraud over honesty. My phone rang. Ms. Dunn. Joel, we have a problem. The opposing counsel is claiming your asset transfer was illegal. They want an emergency hearing this afternoon. Let them have it, I said, watching Vanessa's face. I've got some new evidence to share with the court. The Cumberland County Courthouse felt like a battleground that Friday afternoon. Ms. Dunn had prepared me for what to expect, but seeing Vanessa walk in with her lawyer and Greg felt surreal. 3 months ago, these were the most important people in my life. Now they looked like strangers planning my destruction. Robert Phelps was younger than I'd expected, probably mid-30s with an expensive suit and the kind of confidence that comes from winning too many easy cases. He kept glancing at Greg like he was seeking approval, which told me everything I needed to know about who was really calling the shots. Judge Patricia Kowalski had a reputation for no-nonsense efficiency. She'd been on the bench for 15 years and had seen every kind of marital warfare imaginable. This is an emergency hearing regarding asset protection in the matter of Carter versus Carter, she began. Mr. Phelps, you filed a motion claiming Mr. Carter illegally transferred marital assets to avoid his obligations. Please proceed. Phelps stood up, smoothing his tie. Your Honor, my client has discovered that her husband secretly moved $500,000 from their joint account to a private account, clearly attempting to hide assets in anticipation of divorce proceedings. And when did this transfer occur? 2 days ago, Your Honor, the same day my client filed for divorce. Interesting timing, Ms. Dunn? My lawyer stood slowly, and I could see the predatory gleam in her eyes. Your Honor, my client moved his premarital inheritance to protect it from fraud, not to hide it from legitimate claims. Fraud is a serious accusation, Counselor. Yes, Your Honor, which is why we're prepared to present evidence that Mrs. Carter and her supervisor, Mr. Linton, conspired to steal my client's inheritance through false claims and asset manipulation. Phelps jumped up. Objection. There's no evidence of any conspiracy. Ms. Dunn smiled. Actually, there is. She nodded to me, and I pulled out the digital recorder. Your Honor, I'd like to present a recording made in my own home of my wife and Mr. Linton discussing their plan to defraud me. This is outrageous, Phelps sputtered. That recording is illegal. Maine is a one-party consent state, Mr. Phelps, Judge Kowalski said dryly. If Mr. Carter made the recording in his own home, it's admissible. Let's hear it. I pressed play, and Vanessa's voice filled the courtroom. Joint account, joint access. I've already talked to their lawyer about the community property laws. Once I file the papers tomorrow, I can freeze everything while we sort out the assets. Greg's voice followed. And then we disappear for a while. Let the lawyers handle the messy stuff while we enjoy our new life in Florida. The silence that followed was deafening. I watched Phelps's face cycle through confusion, anger, and what looked like panic. He clearly hadn't known about his client's real plan. Your Honor, Phelps said weakly, I had no knowledge of any such conversation. I'm sure you didn't, Mr. Phelps, but your client certainly did. Mrs. Carter, Mr. Linton, do you care to explain this recording? Vanessa looked like she wanted to disappear through the floor. Greg, on the other hand, looked angry. That recording is taken out of context, he said. We were discussing legitimate asset protection strategies. By disappearing to Florida? Judge Kowalski asked. We were exploring options for Mrs. Carter's future financial security. Mr. Linton, are you an attorney? No, Your Honor. Are you a financial advisor? No, Your Honor. Then what qualifies you to give advice about asset protection strategies? Greg's jaw tightened. I'm Mrs. Carter's supervisor. I was trying to help her understand her options. By planning to steal her husband's inheritance? We weren't stealing anything. Community property laws clearly state. Mr. Linton, the judge interrupted, community property laws don't apply to premarital assets, which is what Mr. Carter's inheritance represents. Did you know that? The courtroom was silent except for the court reporters typing. We were told it was marital property. By whom? Greg glanced at Phelps, who was frantically shuffling through papers. Your Honor, Ms. Dunn interjected, We have additional evidence that Mr. Linton and Mrs. Carter were planning to leave the state with the stolen funds. She handed the clerk a stack of documents. Hotel reservations in Boca Raton, apartment rental agreements, and airline tickets for this weekend. Phelps stood up. Your Honor, I need to request a recess to consult with my clients. I'll bet you do, but first let's address the immediate issue. Mr. Carter, where is the inheritance money now? In a separate account at First National Bank, Your Honor. I can provide all documentation showing it was my father's money, left to me individually, never commingled with marital assets. Ms. Dunn, do you have that documentation? Yes, Your Honor. Bank records, the will, probate documents, everything clearly showing this was Mr. Carter's separate property. Judge Kowalski reviewed the papers quickly. Mr. Phelps, your motion is denied. Mr. Carter had every right to protect his separate property from fraudulent claims. Furthermore, I'm ordering an investigation into potential criminal charges for conspiracy to commit fraud. Your Honor, please. Vanessa spoke for the first time. This is all a misunderstanding. Mrs. Carter, I've been doing this for 15 years. I know the difference between a misunderstanding and a conspiracy. What I heard on that recording was two people planning to steal money that doesn't belong to them. But the community property laws don't apply to inheritances, as any competent attorney would have told you. Mr. Phelps, did you advise your client that she had no legal claim to her husband's inheritance? Phelps looked sick. Your Honor, I was told the inheritance had been commingled with marital assets. By whom? By my client. So Mrs. Carter lied to her own attorney? The silence stretched out uncomfortably. Your Honor, Ms. Dunn said, we move for sanctions against Mrs. Carter for filing frivolous claims based on false information. Motion granted. Mrs. Carter, you and Mr. Linton will be responsible for all legal fees in this matter, including Mr. Carter's attorney costs. Additionally, I'm referring this case to the district attorney's office for potential fraud charges. Vanessa started crying, not the elegant tears of a wronged woman, but the ugly, desperate sobs of someone watching their world collapse. Greg stood up abruptly. This is ridiculous. We're leaving. Mr. Linton, you're not going anywhere until this hearing is concluded. You can't keep me here. I'm not even a party to this divorce. You became a party when you conspired to commit fraud. Bailiff, please ensure Mr. Linton remains in the courtroom. The bailiff, a large man with the build of a former football player, moved to block the exit. Greg sat down hard, his face red with anger and embarrassment. Now then, Judge Kowalski continued, let's discuss the divorce itself. Mrs. Carter, you're seeking dissolution of marriage and equitable distribution of assets. Given what we've heard today, I'm inclined to award Mr. Carter everything, including attorney fees and damages for emotional distress. Your Honor, that seems excessive, Phelps said weakly. Mr. Phelps, your client attempted to steal $500,000 from her husband while planning to flee the state with her lover. I'd say my response is remarkably restrained. She turned to me. Mr. Carter, do you wish to proceed with the divorce? I looked at Vanessa, still crying in her chair, and felt something I hadn't expected. Pity. Not enough to forgive her, but enough to want this nightmare to end. Yes, Your Honor, I just want it to be over. Very well, I'm granting the divorce on grounds of adultery and attempted fraud. Mr. Carter keeps all separate property, including the inheritance. Marital assets will be divided equally, minus Mrs. Carter's liability for legal fees and court costs. She banged her gavel. This hearing is adjourned. Mr. Phelps, I suggest you have a long conversation with your client about the consequences of lying to the court. As people filed out of the courtroom, Greg cornered me near the door. You think you're so smart, he hissed. You have no idea what you've done. I've protected myself from thieves. Pretty straightforward. This isn't over. Yeah, it is. You and Vanessa can find someone else to steal from. He stepped closer, trying to intimidate me with his size. You're going to regret this. Mr. Linton, Ms. Dunn appeared beside us. I'd be very careful about making threats in a courthouse, especially with a bailiff watching. Greg glanced around, realized he was drawing attention, and stalked away. Well, Ms. Dunn said, that went better than expected. Is it really over? The legal part is. But people like that don't usually give up easily. Be careful for the next few weeks. I nodded, watching Vanessa and Greg argue in the hallway. Whatever they were discussing, it was heated, probably deciding who to blame for their spectacular failure. As I walked to my car, I felt a strange mixture of relief and sadness. My marriage was over, my wife had tried to rob me, and I'd just watched two people destroy their lives for money they were never going to get. But I'd won. Against all odds, the boring, predictable husband had outmaneuvered the schemers. It should have felt better than it did. The next few days passed in a strange blur of normalcy and chaos. Vanessa moved out of our house, taking only her personal belongings and leaving behind 15 years of shared memories. She didn't say goodbye, didn't try to explain, didn't even leave a note. One day she was there, the next day she wasn't. I should have been relieved, but the empty house felt more like a tomb than a victory prize. Curtis called on Wednesday morning. "You need to see this," he said. "Meet me at Murphy's Diner in 20 minutes. Murphy's was the kind of place where retired cops and private investigators gathered to share gossip and complain about the younger generation. Curtis was already there when I arrived, sitting in a back booth with a newspaper and a grim expression. "Greg Linton got fired yesterday," he said without preamble. That was fast. His wife filed for divorce the same day. Apparently, she'd hired her own private investigator weeks ago. She knew about the affair before you did. He slid the newspaper across the table. The business section had a small article about personnel changes at Hartwell & Associates, including the departure of Greg Linton from his position as senior financial manager. "There's more," Curtis continued. "Cynthia Linton, that's his wife. She's not just divorcing him. She's going after everything. Turns out she's been documenting his affairs for years, waiting for the right moment to strike." Affairs? Plural? Vanessa wasn't his first office romance. Cynthia has photos, hotel receipts, credit card statements, the works. She's claiming adultery, emotional cruelty, and financial misconduct. I stared at the newspaper, processing this information. So Vanessa thought she was special? Looks like she was just the latest in a long line of side pieces. And now she's unemployed too. What? Hartwell & Associates terminated her yesterday. Something about conduct unbecoming and violation of company policies? Apparently having an affair with your supervisor while plotting to defraud your husband reflects poorly on the firm's reputation. The irony was almost funny. Vanessa and Greg had planned to steal my money and disappear to Florida. Instead, they'd both lost their jobs, their marriages, and their reputations. They were free to run away together, but they no longer had anything to run away with. "How's she handling it?" I asked. "Not well, from what I hear. She's been staying at that cheap motel on Route 1, the one with the weekly rates. Kara, her best friend, she's been telling everyone that Vanessa's having some kind of breakdown." I knew I should feel vindicated, but instead I felt hollow. This wasn't the clean victory I'd imagined. It was just messy and sad, with casualties everywhere. My phone buzzed. Text message from an unknown number. "We need to talk." V. I showed it to Curtis. "What do you think?" "I think people who try to steal $500,000 don't get to demand conversations, but it's your call." I thought about it for a moment, then typed back, "Nothing to talk about." The response came immediately. "Please, I can explain everything." "You explained plenty in court." "That recording was taken out of context. You don't understand what really happened." I almost laughed. Even now, caught red-handed with evidence of her conspiracy, she was still trying to manipulate the narrative. "I understand perfectly. You tried to steal my inheritance and run away with your boyfriend. Pretty simple story." "It wasn't like that. Greg told me you were hiding money, planning to divorce me and leave me with nothing." "So you decided to strike first?" "I was scared. He made it sound like you were going to destroy me financially." I stared at the phone, amazed by her ability to rewrite history. "Vanessa, I never mentioned divorce. I never hid any money. I never did anything except trust you." "I know that now, but Greg was very convincing." "So this is all Greg's fault?" "He manipulated me, made me think you were the enemy." "And the affair, was that manipulation too?" The phone was quiet for several minutes. Then, "Can we meet somewhere? Just to talk?" "No." "Joel, please. I've lost everything. My job, my friends, my home. I just need to understand how it all went so wrong. You know how it went wrong. You chose to lie, cheat, and steal instead of having an honest conversation with your husband." "I was trying to protect myself." "From what? From me asking you to be honest about your feelings? From me suggesting marriage counseling? From me trying to work things out?" Another long pause. Then, "I thought you'd fight the divorce. Try to keep everything out of spite." "You never gave me the chance to prove otherwise." "I know. I made a mistake." "You made a lot of mistakes. The affair, the fraud, the lies, trusting Greg, lying to your lawyer, underestimating me. Take your pick. What do you want me to say? That I'm sorry? I am? That I was wrong? I was. That I wish I could take it all back? I do." I looked at Curtis, who was reading the newspaper and pretending not to listen. He'd seen this kind of thing before, the desperate ex-spouse trying to manipulate their way back into their victim's life. "Vanessa, I don't want anything from you except to be left alone. So that's it? 15 years of marriage and you're just done? You were done 15 years ago. You just didn't tell me until last week. That's not true. Then when? When did you decide I wasn't worth being honest with? When did you decide I was the enemy instead of your partner? The phone was quiet for a long time. When the response finally came, it was shorter. I never meant for it to happen this way. But you meant for it to happen. You meant to take my money and disappear with Greg. You just didn't mean to get caught. Yes. At least that was honest. Joel, what am I supposed to do now? I have no job, no money, no place to live. Figure it out. Like any other adult who made bad choices. I can't believe you're being so cold. I can't believe you tried to steal $500,000 from me. I guess we're both full of surprises. I turned off my phone and slid it into my pocket. Feel better? Curtis asked. Not really. I feel like I'm kicking someone when they're down. She kicked you first, while you were sleeping, trusting her, thinking you had a marriage. I know, but it still doesn't feel good. It's not supposed to feel good. If you enjoyed destroying people, you'd be like them. Curtis was right, but that didn't make it easier. I'd won the war, but victory felt a lot like emptiness. That evening, I was cleaning out Vanessa's closet when I found a shoebox hidden behind her winter coats. Inside were dozens of letters, cards, and photos, but not from our marriage. These were from Greg, dating back almost 2 years. The early letters were romantic, but cautious. I can't stop thinking about you. We have to be careful. My wife doesn't understand me the way you do. The later ones were more calculating. Have you thought about what we discussed? About your financial situation? You deserve better than struggling with someone who doesn't appreciate your worth. There are ways to protect yourself if things go badly. The most recent letters laid out the plan in detail. Greg had researched Maine's community property laws, identified my inheritance as a target, and coached Vanessa on how to claim it. He'd even recommended Robert Phelps as an attorney, apparently because Phelps was young and inexperienced enough to file the paperwork without asking too many questions. But the most damning evidence was in the photos. Pictures of Greg with other women, obviously taken without his knowledge. Vanessa had been documenting his other affairs, collecting evidence of his pattern of behavior. She'd known exactly what kind of man she was dealing with. She'd known he was a serial cheater, a manipulator, and a liar. And she'd decided to trust him anyway because he was offering her what she wanted, a way to take my money and disappear. I sat on our bedroom floor, surrounded by the debris of my wife's secret life, and finally understood the full scope of her betrayal. This wasn't a crime of passion or a moment of weakness. This was a calculated long-term conspiracy to defraud me, and now she wanted to meet and explain everything, as if there was some version of this story that would make it acceptable. My phone buzzed again. Another text from Vanessa. I saw Greg today. He's blaming everything on me, telling people I seduced him and manipulated him into the whole scheme. He's making me the villain. I almost felt sorry for her. Almost. Sounds familiar, I typed back. Isn't that what you're trying to do to him? That's different. He really did manipulate me. And you really did try to steal from me. We all make choices, Vanessa. Now we all live with the consequences. I turned off the phone again and went back to cleaning out the closet. Tomorrow, I'd start the process of rebuilding my life without her. Tonight, I just wanted to finish erasing the evidence that she'd ever been here. 2 weeks after the courthouse confrontation, I thought the worst was over. I was wrong. It started with my car. I came out of the grocery store on a Saturday morning to find all 4 tires slashed and thief keyed into the paint on both sides. The security cameras had mysteriously malfunctioned during the exact time window when the damage occurred. Then my consulting clients started getting anonymous calls claiming I was under investigation for fraud and not safe to do business with. I lost 3 contracts in 1 week. The harassment escalated to my home. Garbage dumped on my lawn, newspapers stolen from my driveway, my mailbox knocked over twice. Someone even threw a brick through my living room window with a note attached. This isn't over. I called Curtis, who came over to survey the damage and install a security system. This has Greg written all over it, he said, adjusting a camera angle. Vanessa's too smart to leave evidence. This is amateur hour revenge stuff. Can we prove it? Give me a few days. Guys like Greg always get sloppy when they're angry. Curtis was right. On Wednesday, my new security cameras caught Greg in the act of spray painting fraud on my garage door at 3 a.m. The footage was crystal clear. His face, his license plate, everything. I called the police and pressed charges for vandalism, harassment, and stalking. Greg was arrested at his temporary apartment Thursday morning. But instead of ending the harassment, his arrest seemed to trigger something desperate in both him and Vanessa, That's when they made their biggest mistake. Friday evening, I was having dinner with Curtis at a downtown restaurant when Vanessa walked in with two people I'd never seen before. A man and woman in their 30s, both looking like they'd rather be anywhere else. "Joel," Vanessa said, approaching our table with fake confidence. "I'd like you to meet some friends of mine. This is Dave and Lisa Morrison." The names hit me immediately. The Morrison Group, the bankrupt company she'd claimed to be auditing. "We understand you've been spreading lies about Vanessa," Dave Morrison said uncomfortably, trying to destroy her reputation. "Actually, I haven't said anything about Vanessa to anyone except my lawyer in the court." "That's not what we heard," Lisa Morrison added. "We heard you've been calling her employers, her friends, telling them she's a criminal." I looked at Curtis, who was watching this performance with professional interest. "Mr. and Mrs. Morrison," I said calmly, "did Vanessa tell you she tried to steal $500,000 from me?" "That's not what happened," Dave Morrison said, but his voice lacked conviction. "Did she tell you she was having an affair with her boss while planning to defraud me?" "You're twisting the facts," Vanessa said. "I was trying to protect myself from your financial abuse." "Financial abuse? I put your name on every account we had. You had access to everything. You controlled everything, made all the decisions. Name one financial decision I made without consulting you." Vanessa's mouth opened and closed without sound. "Here's what really happened," I continued, looking at the Morrisons. "Vanessa and her boyfriend Greg planned to steal my inheritance and disappear to Florida. They got caught, lost their jobs, and now they're trying to rewrite history." "We have proof," Lisa Morrison said weakly. "Documents showing you hid money from her." "Really? I'd love to see those documents." Vanessa reached into her purse and pulled out a folder. "Bank statements showing you secretly moved money without telling me." I opened the folder and almost laughed. The evidence was photocopies of my legitimate asset transfer, with handwritten notes in the margins claiming the transfer was suspicious and designed to defraud spouse. "Vanessa, these are the same bank records I presented in court, the ones that proved I was protecting my inheritance from your fraud attempt. You moved the money to hide it from me. I moved the money after I discovered you were planning to steal it. There's a difference." Curtis leaned forward. "Mr. and Mrs. Morrison, did Vanessa tell you she's been charged with conspiracy to commit fraud?" The Morrisons looked at each other nervously. "She said those charges were false," Dave Morrison said, "that you made them up to hurt her." "I don't file criminal charges. The district attorney does that based on evidence, in this case audio recordings of Vanessa and Greg planning the theft." "Those recordings were illegal," Vanessa said desperately. "The court ruled they were admissible. Your own lawyer didn't object to them." I could see the Morrisons realizing they'd been lied to. Their discomfort was obvious. "Look," I said, "I don't know what Vanessa told you about our situation, but I suggest you get the facts before you get involved. This is between her and me, and it's already been settled in court." Dave Morrison stood up. "Lisa, we should go." "Wait," Vanessa said, grabbing his arm. "You said you'd help me." "We said we'd listen to your side of the story, but this isn't what you told us." "They're lying. They're all lying." The Morrisons left quickly, clearly embarrassed by the whole situation. Vanessa stood there for a moment, watching her last allies disappear, then turned back to me with pure hatred in her eyes. "You've destroyed my life," she said. "You destroyed your own life. I just refuse to let you destroy mine too. I gave you 15 years. 15 years of my life. And I gave you 15 years of mine. The difference is, I was faithful and honest. You were boring and controlling. If I was so terrible, why didn't you just ask for a divorce? Because you would have fought it, tried to keep everything. You'll never know, because you chose theft over honesty." Vanessa looked around the restaurant, realizing that other diners were watching our conversation. Her voice dropped to a whisper. "What do you want from me? I've lost everything. My job, my home, my friends. Isn't that enough?" "I don't want anything from you, Vanessa. I want you to leave me alone and let me rebuild my life." "And if I don't," Curtis spoke up, "then you'll join your boyfriend in jail. We have enough evidence of harassment to put you both away for a long time." Vanessa's face went pale. "You can't prove I was involved in any harassment." "Actually, we can. Phone records, witness statements, security footage. You've been sloppy." She looked back and forth between us, calculating her options. "This isn't over," she said finally. "Yeah, it is," I replied. "It's been over since the day you decided to steal from me instead of talking to me. Everything since then has just been cleaning up the mess." Vanessa walked away without another word. I watched her leave, feeling a mixture of sadness and relief. "Think she'll back off now?" Curtis asked. I think she's finally starting to understand that she can't manipulate her way out of this one. And Greg? Greg's looking at jail time for the harassment charges. I don't think he'll be bothering anyone for a while. Curtis raised his beer. To winning the hard way. To surviving the betrayal. We clinked glasses, and for the first time in months, I felt like I could actually move forward. The legal battles were over. The harassment would end. My marriage was finished, but my life wasn't. I'd been tested in ways I never imagined, and I'd passed. Not perfectly, not without scars, but I'd protected myself and held on to my dignity. Sometimes that's the best victory you can hope for. 3 months later, I thought I'd seen the last of Vanessa and Greg. I was wrong again. The call came on a Tuesday morning from Ms. Dunn. Joel, we have a situation. Vanessa and Greg are claiming you fabricated evidence against them. They've hired a new lawyer, and they're demanding a new hearing. On what grounds? They're claiming the audio recording was doctored and that you conspired with me to frame them. I almost laughed. They're accusing us of the same thing they actually did? Desperate people make desperate arguments. But here's the thing. Their new lawyer is Samuel Brennan. The name meant nothing to me, but Ms. Dunn's tone suggested it should. Brennan specializes in overturning fraud convictions. He's expensive, aggressive, and he doesn't take cases unless he thinks he can win. How are they paying for him? That's what worries me. Brennan's retainer alone is more than both of them could afford, especially with no jobs and pending criminal charges. So someone else is funding this. That would be my guess. The question is who and why. I got my answer that evening when Curtis called with news from his investigation. Remember Cynthia Linton, Greg's wife? The one who's divorcing him? That's the one. Turns out she's not just divorcing Greg, she's trying to destroy him completely, and she's decided that helping Vanessa overturn the fraud charges is the best way to do it. That makes no sense. It does if you understand her game. See, if Vanessa and Greg can prove the fraud charges were false, then Greg can claim he was wrongfully terminated from his job. That opens up a wrongful termination lawsuit against Hartwell and Associates. And Cynthia owns stock in Hartwell and Associates. A lot of stock. If Greg wins a big settlement, she gets half of it in the divorce. But if Greg is guilty of fraud, he gets nothing and she gets nothing. The twisted logic was almost impressive. Cynthia was funding her husband's defense not to help him, but to position herself for a bigger divorce settlement. So she's using Vanessa to get to Greg's money? Exactly. And Vanessa's desperate enough to go along with it, because it's her only chance to avoid criminal charges. What kind of evidence are they claiming to have? That's where it gets interesting. They're bringing in some kind of audio expert who claims your recording was edited. It wasn't edited. I know that, and you know that. But proving it in court might be tricky. Ms. Dunn called the next day with more details about Brennan's strategy. He's claiming that you and I conspired to create false evidence, she explained. The theory is that you recorded separate conversations and spliced them together to make it sound like Vanessa and Greg were planning fraud. Can he prove that? He doesn't have to prove it. He just has to create reasonable doubt. If the judge thinks the recording might have been tampered with, it becomes inadmissible. And without the recording? Without the recording, it's just your word against theirs. Much harder to prove fraud. So what do? We fight back. But I need to warn you. This is going to get ugly. Brennan's going to attack your credibility, your motives, your character. He's going to make you look like a vindictive husband who fabricated evidence to destroy his wife. Let him try. The new hearing was scheduled for the following Friday. This time, the courtroom was packed with reporters, curious lawyers, and what looked like half of Vanessa's former social circle. Word had gotten out about the doctored evidence claim, and people were treating it like entertainment. Judge Kowalski looked annoyed by the circus atmosphere. This is a hearing, not a theater performance. Anyone who disrupts these proceedings will be removed. Samuel Brennan was everything Ms. Dunn had described. Expensive suit, perfect hair, and the kind of confidence that comes from winning cases other lawyers wouldn't touch. Your Honor, he began, we're here today because a grave injustice has been perpetrated against my clients. Mr. Carter, with the help of his attorney, fabricated evidence to frame my clients for crimes they didn't commit. That's a serious accusation, Mr. Brennan. What evidence do you have to support it? We have expert testimony that the audio recording presented in the previous hearing was artificially constructed from multiple separate conversations. He gestured to a man in the gallery. Dr. Marcus Webb is a forensic audio analyst with 20 years of experience in detecting manipulated recordings. I felt Ms. Dunn tense beside me. Dr. Webb was apparently well known in legal circles, and not in a good way. Dr. Webb, Brennan continued, has analyzed the recording and found clear evidence of digital editing, splicing, and artificial enhancement. Dr. Webb took the witness stand and launched into a technical explanation of audio analysis that was clearly designed to confuse rather than clarify. He used terms like spectral discontinuities and temporal anomalies to describe what he claimed were signs of tampering. In my professional opinion, he concluded, this recording has been extensively modified to create the impression of a continuous conversation that never actually occurred. Ms. Dunn stood up for cross-examination. Dr. Webb, how many times have you testified in court? Approximately 40 times over the past 5 years. And how many times have you found recordings to be authentic? Dr. Webb paused. I don't understand the question. It's simple. In your 40 court appearances, how many times did you testify that a recording was genuine and unaltered? That's not really relevant to my analysis. I think it's very relevant. The answer is 0, isn't it? You've never once testified that a recording was authentic. My expertise is in detecting alterations. I'm typically only called when there are questions about authenticity. Or when someone is paying you to find problems that don't exist. Objection. Brennan jumped up. Sustained, Judge Kowalski said. But I'm curious about this pattern, Dr. Webb. Do you have any financial arrangement with Mr. Brennan or his clients? I'm being paid for my time and expertise, as is standard in expert testimony. How much are you being paid? $25,000. A murmur went through the courtroom. That was an enormous fee for a single day's testimony. And who is paying that fee? Dr. Webb glanced at Brennan nervously. The law firm of Brennan and Associates. But who is paying the law firm? I don't have that information. Ms. Dunn smiled. Your Honor, I'd like to call Curtis Martinez to the stand. Curtis had been busy during the week between hearings. He traced the money trail from Cynthia Linton through 2 shell companies to Brennan's law firm, and he discovered something even more interesting about Dr. Webb. Mr. Martinez, Ms. Dunn began, what is your professional background? 20 years with the Maine State Police, specializing in fraud investigation. Currently licensed as a private investigator. Have you had occasion to investigate Dr. Webb's background? Yes. Dr. Webb's doctorate is in music theory, not forensic science. His 20 years of experience in audio analysis consists entirely of paid testimony in civil cases. Has he ever worked for law enforcement? No, he's never been employed by any police department, FBI office, or legitimate forensic laboratory. What about his analysis of Mr. Carter's recording? Curtis pulled out a thick folder. I had the recording analyzed by the Maine State Police Forensic Laboratory. Their conclusion is that it's completely authentic, with no signs of editing or manipulation. And Dr. Webb's claims about spectral discontinuities and temporal anomalies. According to the state lab, those are normal artifacts of digital recording equipment. They appear in every recording made with standard consumer devices. Brennan objected repeatedly, but the damage was done. His expert witness was exposed as a fraud, and his client's credibility was destroyed. Judge Kowalski called a recess, and I watched Vanessa and Greg huddled with their lawyers in heated conversation. Cynthia Linton sat in the back row, looking like she was calculating how much money she'd wasted on this failed gambit. When court reconvened, Brennan made one last desperate play. Your Honor, even if the recording is authentic, it doesn't prove my clients actually intended to commit fraud. They were discussing hypothetical scenarios, exploring options, engaging in what amounts to fantasy conversations. Mr. Brennan, Judge Kowalski said dryly, your clients made hotel reservations, opened bank accounts, and filed legal papers. That goes well beyond hypothetical discussions. They were preparing for a legitimate divorce proceeding. By planning to steal money that didn't belong to them and flee to another state, they were protecting Mrs. Carter's interests. From what? From her husband asking for an honest conversation about their marriage. Brennan had no answer for that. Judge Kowalski delivered her ruling without hesitation. The original fraud charges stand. The audio recording is authentic and admissible. Mr. Carter acted properly in protecting his assets from theft. She turned to Vanessa and Greg. Furthermore, I'm adding perjury charges for your false testimony today, and I'm referring this entire matter to the State Bar Association for investigation of possible attorney misconduct. Brennan went pale. A state bar investigation could end his career. As for you, Mrs. Carter and Mr. Linton, you've now lied to this court twice, wasted taxpayer resources on frivolous hearings, and attempted to suborn perjury from a fake expert witness. I'm sentencing you both to 6 months in county jail, suspended pending completion of community service and restitution to Mr. Carter for his legal expenses. The gavel came down with finality. As the courtroom emptied, Vanessa approached me one last time. I hope you're happy, she said. I'm not happy, Vanessa. I'm tired. Tired of your lies, tired of your schemes, tired of cleaning up the messes you create. I never meant for it to go this far. You never meant to get caught. There's a difference. She looked around the empty courtroom, her dreams of easy money and Florida beaches finally dead. What happens now? Now you serve your community service, pay your restitution, and figure out how to rebuild your life without stealing from other people. And us? There is no us. There hasn't been an us since the day you decided I was worth more to you as a victim than as a husband. Vanessa walked away for the last time, her shoulders slumped in defeat. Greg followed her, and I watched them leave together. Two broken people who'd destroyed their lives chasing money they were never going to get. Cynthia Linton passed me on her way out, pausing just long enough to speak. You know, I actually admire what you did, she said. Most people would have just rolled over and let them win. Why did you help them? She smiled coldly. I didn't help them. I used them, just like they tried to use you. And how did that work out? Better than you might think. Greg's going to jail, which means I get everything in the divorce, and now I know exactly what kind of man I was married to. She walked away, leaving me with the uncomfortable realization that I'd been just another piece in someone else's chess game, but I'd won. Against all odds, the boring, predictable husband had outmaneuvered the schemers, the manipulators, and the fake experts. I'd protected my inheritance, exposed the conspiracy, and held on to my dignity. Ms. Dunn joined me as I gathered my papers. How do you feel? She asked. Like I've been through a war. You have, and you won. Did I? Look around. Vanessa's life is ruined. Greg's going to jail. Brennan's career is probably over. Cynthia got what she wanted, but at the cost of destroying her husband. Where's the victory in all that destruction? The victory is that you didn't let them destroy you. You fought back, you protected yourself, and you proved that good people don't have to finish last. She was right, but it still felt hollow. I'd wanted justice, not carnage. As I walked out of the courthouse for the last time, I thought about the past year. 15 years of marriage, gone. A wife I'd trusted, revealed as a stranger. Friends who'd abandoned me, enemies who'd underestimated me, and a legal system that had ultimately worked the way it was supposed to. I'd learned things about myself I'd never known. That I was stronger than I'd thought. That I could fight back when cornered. That I wouldn't roll over and play victim just because someone expected me to. But I'd also learned that victory doesn't always feel like winning. Sometimes it just feels like surviving. I got in my car and drove home to my empty house, ready to start building a new life on the foundation of the old one's ashes. Behind me, the courthouse stood silent in the afternoon sun, its business finished, its justice served.